So I guess we are live.
Yeah, Weber, we can proceed.
Sure. So good morning and hello everyone. Welcome to Webisodes episode 10. Indian subcontinent at SAP. And I am Ahmedabad alumni. Mr. Chatterjee's prowess leaves its marks on various domains such as branding and identity, B2B marketing, digital and community marketing, trade and channel marketing, new product launch, thought leadership, and partner engagement. Mr. Chatterjee, being associated with giants like ITC Limited, HCL Technologies in the past, is a multidisciplinary strategic marketer with an astounding experience with thought leadership, content development, campaign management, digital community leverage, and frugal outcome based marketing. Mr. Chatterjee is also a guitarist and loves to sing. Now, I would ask Sir to tell us about his experience in the industry and the current organization, post which we will open up the stage for question and discussions to our guest speaker, the MBA batch of IIT Kanpur, and our live audiences. Live audiences can ask their questions in the chat option, and we'll try to accommodate them and address their queries to our guest speaker. So please go ahead.
Thanks, Vaibhav. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think Vaibhav said it all, not much that I have to add, just that I have spent about 25 years in the industry, and that's just with three organizations. So about a decade with ITC, where I worked across their tobacco division and was part of the team which set up their lifestyle retail business division. When I left ITC, I had put this brand called John Players in the market. I was heading that business. Then I moved to HCL Technologies. I spent over 11 years at HCL, where it was wonderful to see that organization grow from about $500 million when I joined to $6.5 billion when I left, and now HCL is at the 10 billion mark. So, matter of great pride. And finally, now it's about 4 years that I've been with SAP. And at SAP, I basically play two roles. One is I joined them to run marketing for the Indian subcontinent. But by the by, I also acquired a second role, which was that of the Chief Customer Officer, which, given that all of you have significant technology backgrounds, you will understand that as software starts moving from on-prem to cloud, customer success becomes the most critical driver and not just sales. And therefore, organizations like SAP establish a customer office to be able to handle the entire value chain of experience that customers go through. And that responsibility has also devolved on me. So that's a bit about myself. I'm very glad to be here today. Thank you, Vaibhav, for reaching out and inviting me. I do think IIT Kanpur obviously is legend. And all of you, I've seen your backgrounds. I've seen the kind of work you're doing. It's extremely impressive. So I'm really looking forward to some very, very pithy, sharp, and interesting questions coming at me. So over to all of you.
Yes, guys, you can start your queries now. Please raise your hand to ask the questions. Yes, Tarun, please go ahead.
Thank you, Vaibhav. Hello, good morning, sir. This is Tarun this side.
Good morning, Tarun. Yes, hi, Tarun.
Hi, sir. Sir, actually, my question is like, since we are going through very unprecedented situation and everywhere we have uncertainties, so like SAP is also trying to cope up with this, right? So I was going through an article that of SAP Germany, so wherein I read that SAP in Germany, they collaborated with German government and they tried to make so many apps which actually helped in determining the people who are actually suffering from COVID. So I would just like to understand like how are SAP in India, how is like SAP in India trying to cope up with this, and what are they doing to like help in this regard, sir?
Okay, very good question, Tarun. So let me answer that question at three levels. So, so first, as soon as the crisis hit us, and I think we were prepared because we were already in discussions. We knew what the global situation was. I think the first response has been an employee perspective. So SAP is first and primary focus, and that, as you understand, is in a technology industry where a lot of employees have to be on site. There is support. There are go lives. There's a. In spite of all that, by March, when the lockdown went in place, before that, actually by second week of March, SAP had already declared work from home far in advance of the lockdown. And also, we therefore found techniques, ways. So all software support ran uninterrupted. All go lives, customer obligations were done remotely. So all those solutions were put in place extremely fast. So that was one thing that SAP did. The second thing is societally, we run a program in India called Code Unnati. And I'd encourage all of you to check that program out. The basic idea in the program, we started this couple of years back, was while India is a growth economy, it's not inclusive, the kind of growth we see, as all of us are aware, and some of the crisis we saw during the last few months has brought that point home. So we had a theory that one way to make growth more inclusive is through digital literacy of the underprivileged. And so at SAP, we had all the courseware to create digital literacy. We, of course, don't have the reach. A company like SAP does not reach into a village like Chutmalpur in UP. And so, however, SAP's customers who pay a significant amount, so 65, 70% of India's corporate tax is paid by companies who are clients of SAP. So we tied up with them. So actually, Code Unnati was launched 2 years back in partnership first with ITC and L&T. Then it moved into RPG Group, Mahindra's, so on and so forth. And we set up centers in catchments and rural areas that these companies serve, whether on villages in Andhra for ITC, Maharashtra for L&T, Rajasthan. And in each of these places, a Code Unnati center was set up, and we organized the training and all the material, in most cases the hardware, everything required to be able to take youth and women in those villages and get them digitally literate. I'm happy to announce right now there are 1500 plus centers, and over 2 million such youth and women have been through the program, and it has had so that was the second thing that we focused on: keep this running. We know in the current context those centers cannot run, but it was ensured that all of the support, salaries, etc., everything was paid. Third aspect was SAP's customers. So a number of software. So globally, SAP made certain things free, so that things like out of Qualtrics and Employee Pulse Check, a supplier pulse check. Ariba is the world's largest procurement platform. It transacts about $3.5 trillion per annum. So Ariba Discovery, which is the platform on which suppliers can sign up, was made free. In fact, we have extended that time in India because of a special program that we have launched, which I will now talk about. So a lot of these things were done for customers. More importantly, on the customer side, see, we have over 10,000 customers in India. India is not a country of large enterprises. So to give you an example, reportedly India has 63 million companies. About 12 are GST registered. If you go through the registrar of companies, there's about 1.2 million companies with the ROC. Within all these huge numbers, the number of companies who have more than 10 crores paid up capital is just 19,500. So that's just to give you a context. So net in this massive country, only 19,500 companies have more than $1 million in paid up capital. And therefore, it becomes crucial in our country if the MSME sector is not supported, then economically this country is going to, it doesn't matter. You may be a very large enterprise, you may be an L&T or Reliance. This economy actually runs on the MSME sector, which employs over 110 million people, currently is accounting for about 29-30% of GDP. That sector has to grow. So last week, I don't know if any of you picked up, we launched a program called Global Bharat. And the Global Bharat program is an interesting concept because the view again we took about the government support I think the government has done a lot. But if you see, mostly the government has focused on liquidity and not solvency. So it has made acquiring funds easier, but it's not actually given money to anybody to be able to do their business or take care of the crisis that has. Uh, so our view on that is unless you become more competitive and you're able to leverage liquidity better, more efficiently, you may not be able to last. And consequently, Global Bharat is that part of that whole chain where we are focused on making Indian SMEs globally competitive, which we are doing in three ways. So the first is demand. So obviously, nothing has happened on demand, and we are aware that demand is going to be a challenge. So I talked about the Ariba Discovery platform. That's why we have extended that offer up to December so that Indian suppliers can merchandise themselves on a platform which accounts for 3.5 trillion of buying globally. So, and as part of this whole Atmanirbhar movement, clearly, there is an aspiration to become part of global supply chains. And however, to do that, you need to be able to access global demand aggregators, and Ariba is one of them. The second thing we have done is, I believe what SMEs and MSMEs are going to now realize, what everybody is now realizing, is that as you get back to work or things start hitting a new normal, there's going to be a tremendous amount of technology ask even upon blue collar workers. So you may be in a shop floor, but industry 4.0 practices will kick in because of social distancing and such like. And consequently, even if I'm a laborer, if I don't have basic digital competency, I'm not going to be able to do my job, and that time is coming. So we have now repurposed Code Unnati with over 350 programs already as a mobile app. And we are now working with industry to say, wherever you have SMEs, MSMEs, ensure their workers get enrolled in this app so that they can make themselves basically digital literate. The third thing we have done is now, so think of the ERP context, right? If you want to run a professional business, you need software, you need an ERP, you need to be able to run your accounts, your supply chain, a bit of CRM, all that stuff. You need to deploy technology in the enterprise, which largely doesn't exist. So if you take the 62 million number I talked about, and you take SAP's 10,000 customers and add every other ERP offer in this country, you won't cross 70,000 at the very max, if that, which basically means the vast majority of SMEs in our country operate without any enterprise technology. And the average size of most of these companies is under 5 people, actually. Uh, Maybe 10 people, 15 people. So we have a world-class ERP, entry-level ERP called B1. So the third leg of the Global Bharat program is something we call Bharat ERP, where actually we have for India created a starter pack, 1 to 5 licenses, where working with a partner, the partner is offering that uh, to customers at 3,999 rupees per month with a 2 week implementation and a sub 50,000 implementation cost, which I think is not a price point we have ever heard for a world-class ERP in our country. So those are the three things we are very focused on. So I know, Tarun, I took a lot of time to answer because we did a lot of things. We have walked up, the last 3 months feels like 3 years. But I think where we really want to land, is treat this as a turning point, as a burning platform, as an opportunity to get India's SME and MSME sector right up there with the best in the world.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. It was a very elaborative and enlightening answer. And the work that SAP is doing is really impressive, and it will be an inspiration for so many other organizations in the country, sir. I feel so. Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you, Tarun.
Arun, you can go ahead with your question.
Hi, sir. So my question is on the recent news. The Infosys has launched the personalized medicine solution for the pharma companies. So, but if you see the report from the National Research Council and even in the debate in the Union speech of 2015, they have come with the precision medical initiative. So they both have same things, but there is a very slight difference between the precision and the personalized. And if you see the past couple of years, the precision medical has, again a lot of interest as compared to the personalized medicine. So is it a very good strategy to go with this medical solution rather than the precision medical solution?
So Arun, I can't. I'll be very frank. I can't answer that question. I have no view on either precision medicine or personal medicine. However, I do have a view on medicine overall, uh, which is, I think, and this also links back to the point I made about depressed demand. Now, while in our current circumstance, demand will be depressed for many things, especially out of home, let's say out of home luxury consumption items. But I think if I look at India, there are several sectors which are highly supply constrained, and healthcare is one of them. So, healthcare, education, there are a few sectors where there is a massive, and I think one of the things the crisis has also told us is that people in these professions make the least amount of money and have the least amount of security, whereas the professions in which people do tend to make a lot of money aren't adding a lot of value these days, right? So you don't really need an investment banker right now. You need the doctor far more. I think what technology can be deployed for in a country like India, where healthcare is required in such incredible ubiquity, is technology now allows us to actually disaggregate the value chain. So you could, and that is really where I think medicine will have to go, or more telemedicine or digital medicine. So you could technically think now imagine that Code Unnati Center I talked about could also become a clinic, and somebody at the local level could get trained enough to be able to take basic symptoms and feed it into a system. And the system could leverage AI in order to make a diagnostic which is equivalent to what any other doctor could. So, just to give you an example, consequently, if you disaggregate the value chain, you can massively expand the scale, if not the scope, but the scale at which healthcare is provisioned to the citizens of our country, while the quality is still maintained. And I think that really is the direction this has got to go in. Much like in education, it has started, right? Like you're doing virtual classes right now. There is no need to assume that you can't do virtual diagnostics, and we are, but not at that kind of scale. So that's really where I would focus. If I was thinking, and Arun, I am glad that I remember that Tarun was the former speaker, so the T is gone. But Arun, I would suggest think in terms of that. How do we solve the supply side bottleneck, leveraging technology in order to provision healthcare to the largest amount of our citizens? Because I live in Gurgaon, and right next door is Delhi, and we all know what the situation there is right now.
Thank you, sir.
Apu, Apu, you can go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Vaibhav. Hello, sir.
Hi,
Uh,
hi, Apurv.
So I had two questions. The first one is regarding your role with ITC and then switching on to HCL. So you said that initially you were working with the tobacco business of ITC, and then the fashion retail, the lifestyle retail business,
Yeah,
and then you moved on to HCL. So
correct.
I see that in the working with ITC and working with HCL, it's like moving from mass consumers to more of a key account marketing kind of thing. So
Correct.
I wanted to know from a marketer's perspective, what change in thought process or what change in understanding of business is required when you are moving from a mass consumer based business to a more key account marketing kind of business.
Yeah. No, I think Apurv, that's a very good question. And so I must say, when you're moving, so I'll tell you the basic difference, right? When you're in mass versus when you're, let's say, in B2B or high value kind of thing. So in mass, your primary focus becomes brand, and then brand leads to demand. And when you go to, let's say, the B2B sector, your primary focus becomes demand, and from demand, you drive your brand. I think this is the essential switch you have to think about. So, uh, so in the sense, so let's take some of the work I did at HCL as an example, right? So, coming from an ITC, you know, is a great brand building organization. So today, even if I look at foods, they have established power brands like Ashirwad, etc., in very short periods of time. So what you do when you're in FMCG or in a consumer goods kind of business is you have to understand consumers and you have to position a brand that brings them to you, right? It's that story of the party where somebody from the opposite sex has to come to you and ask you for your name, and that's the brand. But the minute you are in the enterprise category, the market is continuously shifting, right? So you take most FMCG, you create one SKU, you create one product as a manifestation of your brand, and that becomes standard. And the task of launching a new product or a segment is a very big task because you will check it versus your brand. Your brand is primacy. But the minute I look at technology, for instance, so let's look at so at HCL, the work I had done on brand translated in 2010-11 to a campaign called Relationship Beyond the Contract. And this came because positioning a brand has three elements. And the elements are, have you got your target customer? Have you got your frame of reference? And have you got your point of difference? All three can actually make your brand. So target customer, you know, when you make a women's magazine, that makes your position just because of who you target. Frame of reference, you know, when 7-Up launched in the US, it was a lime and lemony drink launching with the Uncola. So it chose the frame of reference as the 90% market, which was cola, and not the 2-4% market, which was that segment it actually belonged to. So it created a brand. Point of difference, obviously, is what we understand as USP and all that. But all three have to work together. But in B2B, when you're looking at the brand, you first study demand. What's really happening in the market? So at HCL, this was during the last crisis, this brand, this statement came out. In the last crisis, it was clear that uh, while a financial crisis is running, nobody knows the future. Everybody is deep in uncertainty. And in that time, the outsourcing market actually consisted of these billion-dollar deals that companies struck with IBMs and HPs and more infrastructure up, but large procurement deals. Take over my entire shop and give me the best price. And those were contractually those were 10-year deals, 15-year deals. So instead of at that time at HCL saying that I target application development or what other Indian IT companies were doing, the thinking in HCL was my target customer must be the global majors on large deals. Therefore, my frame of reference is not Infosys, Wipro, it's IBM and Accenture and HP and Capgemini and Ethos Origin and T-Systems and players like that. What's my point of difference? And that's where the point of difference became not a product point of difference or a commercial point of difference. It became a relationship point of difference. relationship beyond the contract, which actually meant you're dealing with vendors who they are also seeing the crisis. When you say, I need to ramp down or I need to reduce my, they'll show you the contract. Here's HCL coming along and saying, I have all the same capability, but I'm not going to show you the contract. I'm going to walk shoulder to shoulder with you. So the entire brand came out of what was happening on the demand side of the market. And that brand statement may also change as the realities in the market change.
Pranav, you can go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Vaibhav. Good afternoon, sir. Sir, my question is primarily related to the WMS market which Oracle has. So, in the WMS space, the primary contender against SAP for last decade was Oracle, who had this sort of massive cloud infrastructure. But recently, with JD's merger with Blue Yonder, they are offering a business 4.0 solution wherein they are leveraging on Blue Yonder's predictive algorithm and coming out to be a major. Also, from the knowledge that I have, the solution that Blue Yonder WMS, former Red Theory WMS is offering, it comes at quite a discounted price as correspond to what SAP has to offer. So in such times when businesses are primarily looking forward to cutting down on their technological investment in terms of new products adaptation or in terms of upgradation, how does SAP plan to remain competitive with such challenges? And
Yeah,
does SAP see this merger between JDA and Blue Yonder as how big of a challenge is it to SAP?
that's an excellent question, Pranab. Thank you so much. So it entirely depends on how the SAP sales team in a particular instance is intelligently dealing with the customer. Because there are two ways of looking at it, right? When you look at point capabilities, so WMS, for instance. So, you can optimize your warehouse, you can automate your warehouse. But what's happening to your supply chain today? Do you realize that? In fact, you may not even need that warehouse. Or you may have to, today, you need extraordinary agility in your supply chain. You need the ability to rapidly localize your supply chain. In fact, you may not even want to maintain inventory anymore, but build local manufacturing hubs who will create your products, right? That's the nature of, and at the same time, you want a supply chain which is so intensely demand driven that your products, see, today's market, you must understand, Pranav, out of stock is a much bigger cost than holding inventory. You must have realized, right, through the lockdown and through all the disruption we are facing. Out of stock means your brand will go out of business. Holding inventory, and so just focusing on automation and efficiency is not going to rescue your business. In fact, a lot of people are now dropping the JIT kind of thinking, the efficiency thinking, because you don't want a supply chain that's so efficient that once there's a disruption, your entire business is stopped, which has happened to many right now. So I think the SAP story is always a gestalt story. SAP has the entire suite. So when a business seeks to optimize the business model with the supply chain as a very massive middle office proportion, uh, in order to give everything I told you, adaptability, flexibility, demand driven, etc., etc. Do you want to convert your supply chain to an outcome? Or do you want to convert your supply chain to an efficient manager of transactions? That's always where the point product can win. But the minute you're thinking business model and outcome, you can't beat SAP. So I think it's, and therefore my immediate response to you was, it depends on the ability of the salesperson in the account. Whether a JDA Blue Yonder kind of partnership will win, and I'm sure they will win in a number of instances, because if you cannot position the demand side requirement to the more strategic aspect of what's the outcome your supply chain is driving, obviously you and I, anybody in that position, will buy the cheaper product, which allows us to automate as efficiently as possible.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So, sir, at this point of time, we'll take one live question. So, Mr. Saurabh from our live audience is asking, staying put is the best way to stem the spread of coronavirus, that is COVID-19.
Mhm.
But domestic consumers have an immediate impact on brands. Reducing advertising spending will reduce the spending in the short term, but does it affect the resilience of a brand as well? How can companies adapt to load situation?
Okay. Can you hear me, Vaibhav?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I, you blanked out for a bit there, but I understand what you mean is in this situation, advertising is an easy way to cut cost. But is that a good thing to do for the resilience of the brand itself?
Sure,
Is
sir.
that the question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So my answer, Vaibhav, is very simple. I don't believe advertising builds the brand. So I know this may seem like heresy, but I think so. If you read The Purple Cow, I think, and Seth Godin made a very good point decades back. In the days of social media, it's what's remarkable about you that creates a brand. Do you know the Purple Cow story?
No, sir, if you
So,
can give us some context.
so I'll give it to you. I'll tell you the whole book in 3-4 sentences, which is always what you can do with American authors. But basically, the story is you're driving down a long country road and you see the most beautiful cow in the world, you'll just keep driving. But if instead you saw the ugliest cow in the world and it was colored purple, you'd stop your car, click a snap, and say, I saw a purple cow, and post it on Facebook, Twitter, or wherever. So Seth's argument was it's about how remarkable you are and not how good you are that makes you as a brand. And if you extend that argument, it's what people say about your brand that makes your brand. Advertising is what you say about yourself. Now, obviously, if that is synergized and synchronized, it will work very well, but it's not as if. So, what at SAP we believe is happening is we have moved to the age of experience management. That's why last year we acquired this company called Qualtrics for $8 billion. Now, in effect, what that allows you to do is to leverage technology to be able to track structured and unstructured data on experience for your brand at the customer level, your employees, your channel partners, and what have you. And then you can bring all of that data together to start mining using statistical tools to mine insight. And then the software itself allows you to convert to action instead of depending on and near real time. So, so imagine today, which are the most powerful brands in the planet? Amazon. Have you seen them advertise? Right? Apple. So these are the most powerful brands in our generations today are being born because of the experience that they provide. So at this stage, I think if somebody chose to reduce advertising, I don't think that would have an impact on the brand. But if somebody chose to instead focus on experience management, bring that up and ensure that their consumers, customers, trade partners, etc., are having a powerful, relevant, and valid experience with the brand. Now, the reason why I think that's so important right now is in times of trouble, like I told you the HCL story, people remember brands who stood by them, and the ability to build trust is massive. So if at this time the focus moves to experience and there is an experience provided that is consistent, trustworthy, and desirable by whichever is the stakeholder that you're dealing with, those brands are going to come out very powerfully from this.
Great explanation, sir. Thank you for that. Himanshu, you can go ahead with your question.
Hello, sir.
Hi, Manshu.
So my question is primarily directed towards the affordable ERP, Bharat ERP that you talked about. I personally come from a MSME sector, so
Mhm.
uh, I'm pretty sure you're aware that the challenges that a bigger corporation faces are quite different, and the requirements are quite different as well.
True.
And as you mentioned, primarily in MSME, there'll be 5 to 10 people that are managing everything, and these 5 to 10 people will need to take on multiple roles and multiple tasks. Unlike
True.
big corporations, often there are not people who are trained in ERP. Like big corporations can hire SAP consultants and people who have a specific domain knowledge of those solutions. So we have products. Generally, MSMEs look at ERP from the point of view of an accounting solution.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in such a scenario, what is SAP doing to address those changes, as well as from a marketing point of view? How are you addressing the concern? Because if I, as an MSME owner, look at SAP, the first thing that comes to mind, it will be a very big ticket item. It will not be very affordable for me. So there's a reverse brand equity effect in that sense. So what is SAP in particular doing to address that?
So the prices I quoted, Himanshu, you heard those as well?
Yes, sir.
Do they frighten you as an MSME owner?
Sir, to be honest, again, the reverse effect comes in play there. I'll feel like, okay, there might be maintenance costs
Nothing,
associated that.
everything is built in. So when I said 399 per month, it is maintained. There is nothing else. The only other cost you will pay is sub 50,000 for the implementation, which will be done in 2 weeks by the partner I talked about. After that, forever, your only payout per month per employee that actually takes a license is 399.
So, I'd like to digress over here. There are solutions like Telephone, let's say, that
Yeah.
label themselves as ERP plus or MAG ERP plus. Now, their cost of implementation currently, a lot of them offer their services for around 10,000 a year. Tele one-time fees is around 18,000 for depending on the packages that you opt for. So, as an MSME owner, there's a constant weighing in going on. So for you to convert me or to switch, make me switch to your platform, you'll have to educate me and actually prove to me that there is a benefit. And as you said, that you have to take along MSME sector to actually capture in Indian market. So that
Yeah,
is the point I was making.
absolutely. So see, the difference between an accounting software and an ERP is the ERP puts your entire business, all transactions on one platform, right? So whether it is accounting, whether it is invoicing, whether it is customer engagement, whether it's your supply chain management, all the transactions get featured on one platform. Now, obviously, there is a way you need to use it. My argument would be when there are only 5 or 10 people running that enterprise, and as you, Himanshu, very rightly said, they'll be doing all jobs. The effort needs to be that they need to do the value-added jobs. If somebody is sitting and writing emails to customers every day, and instead the customer data and the customer communication can be completely automated, it's better that that job is done by a piece of software. So the effective use of an ERP, and it once I say, as I said, the dependency is again, which are the transactions that you want to use the ERP for. But as somebody in the MSME, the freedom that the ERP gives you is the ability to say that in our day-to-day life, 5 of us who are running this piece of business, we do 100 transactions. We'd like 45 of them to be run by the software, and it has the capability to do so. So we want to focus on those 50 transactions which are genuinely value adding. Rather than writing emails to customers, I want to make actual customer calls and have conversations with customers where we can do more business together, etc., etc. So I think the basic difference is the minute you think that I want to do higher value add tasks with the few people that I have, and I want as much as possible the low impact, highly repetitive tasks to be done by automation and software, that's when the ERP has value, which is not something a Tally or any of the others which you locally get can do for you, other than doing precisely that for your accounting. Similarly, when you work with an SAP software, your GST filing becomes automatic, your reconciliation becomes automatic. You get the point, right? There's a huge amount of transactional workload which you just eliminate quickly. because you don't have the, and remember, this is the difference. Big companies have enough people who can sit around doing shit work, transactional, operational. Small guys don't. So, and that actually is the strength. So, I think the legend has it, Uber created 500,000 driver employment in this country, right? Two people came to India and set it up. That's the power of technology. So as you leverage, and as I said, this is a starter pack. So it's 1 to 5 licenses. As your company grows, you may grow beyond it. You may go full stack B1. You may move to S4 HANA. You have the whole SAP journey open in front of you, which you can use and leverage, more and more to be able to do this. So I think the difference is, as I said, even on that warehouse management point, do you want to use technology as a point solution, automation enabler for some basic activity? Or do you want to use technology as core to your business strategy, which enables your business to do more this year, even more next year, even, and that's how you will grow. So when you take the B1, so when you go Bharat ERP, you're setting yourself up for growth. When you go Tally, you'll remain in the same place. And I think the one thing Mukesh Ambani is teaching India is always go for growth. If you have the aspiration and you have the guts, it's available to you.
Sir, if I may follow up, and how is SAP in particular conveying that same, message to the customers,
So
or
we
to?
we actually run an SME community called Growth Matters Forum along with Z Business. So you can check that out. It's purely for SMEs. So there are 2,500 members in that community, and they are all SME promoters, owners, people like that. So this whole, the whole Global Bharat program that I talked about is only going through Growth Matters Forum. So there are no big ads. We are not talking elsewhere. We have worked with SME owners, built a community. That community is growing. That community is actually absorbing, merchandising, messaging this whole initiative.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
Shant,
Himanshu.
you can go ahead with your question.
Yes, thank you, Vaibhav. Hello, sir. Sir, my question is again related to the MSME sector.
Yeah.
Sir, we have been seeing that in the past 2 or 3 months, government has been giving various, taking various initiatives to pump in money toward the MSME sector. It has also changed the definition of MSME sectors. We have been seeing that all these efforts are toward the supply side of money, but there is a lack toward the demand side of the MSMEs. Are they willing to take up the loan or not, or they have the capacity during these testing times? What can be some suggestions from your side how that supply demand can be boosted for MSMEs? If you
So
can throw some light.
so Shantu, there's no easy answer. See, I tend to agree with what the government is doing because India doesn't need 63 million companies. Therefore, what they're saying is, I made this point earlier, right? The government is focused on liquidity, not solvency. Solvency will come from your own business model. If you've got a bad business model, there's no point anybody handing money over to you to throw that also away, right? So my sense is what is going to happen as a consequence, and it's going to be a very painful journey. Those who have inefficient, out of date, poor business models are not going to survive. And quite frankly, they don't deserve to survive. They should do something else. And out of this whole thing, I am actually very hopeful that the liquidity arrangement that the government is making will be leveraged by those who have the confidence to say that by infusing liquidity, I will drive growth. Which means you must have a strategy, you must have a demand strategy, you must have a product strategy, you must have a supply chain strategy. It all goes back to the quality of the entrepreneur who is driving that SME company. And I think now the platform is created for, because the Indian economy has had so many loopholes, etc., that many people are in business who are not really good in business. uh, a lot of that, I think, is getting eliminated just because the cash is not there anymore. So to that extent, my expectation, Shantanu, is that a lot are going to go out of business. The remaining guys are going to actually either have a strong business model or are going to move themselves into a stronger business model, both from the perspective of tapping demand better than others, managing supply better than others, and handling compliance and regulation. Because one other thing which is going to come out is the regulatory aspect. Trust is going to be very, very important. We have just seen too many companies in India falling prey to fraud and doing objectionable and unsavory things and destroying trust and value. Uh, I think a lot of those things are going to now, you and I are only going to deal with businesses who we trust. You'll not put your money with somebody who you cannot trust or does not give you cause for trust. So I think this is going to be a bit of a survival of the fittest, and a lot of cleanup is going to happen.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So we'll take a couple of last questions.
Yeah.
Amrit, you can go ahead.
Good morning, sir.
Hi, Amrit.
Sir, my question is more centric towards the implementation partners of SAP.
Yeah.
So usually in ERP implementation, we see a lot of resistance from the employees because they're more comfortable towards the legacy system.
Yeah.
It also involves a lot of time.
Yeah.
So with the new way of working after COVID, how do you see that, that resist to, come up to solve that resistance and the time which is being taken? How do you think that that sort of resistance is overcome by the implementation partners while working from remote areas? Do you think it is a problem, or you think that there's some other challenges that come up with the new way of working for those implementation partners?
Amrit, I think it's a great question. It's one of the toughest challenges we always battle, because unfortunately, the thing is, people are used to their way of working. And the fact that software comes with inbuilt best practices and so on. So everybody wants to customize it to fit, and that's where all the failures come. So you will typically see that the difference in software between a good implementation and a failed implementation is customization. So, I think one of the things we are learning in this crisis, right, is this crisis, because it is lives and livelihood both, is enabling behavioral changes. So government officials who always wanted a physical meeting are also now meeting over Zoom, right? Entrepreneurs and promoters who similar, right? People are talking more about technology. There's that joke, right? Digital transformation, COVID is the biggest. Is it GST? Is it demonetization or COVID, right? So it's a bit like that. I think as behaviors change, one of the things that may start happening, and I think it's the best possible thing, is especially with cloud cloud products, because with cloud products you can't even do much customization. Is pick what's coming out of the box, use those best practices. If I'm buying HR software, there is a process to do payroll, there's a process to do recruitment, there's a process to do training, there's a process to do succession planning. Just follow the same stuff which is coming out of success factors, because those basic processes aren't by themselves adding competitive advantage to your business. All, if you are doing it off best practice, they're probably adding cost and inefficiency to your business. So focus on making those transactions best practice, and then focus on what is the real X factor in your business. If it's if it's your design, put your effort there. If it's your supply chain distribution, put your effort there, etc., etc. So I think I am hopeful that one of the changes we will see, and we have seen a lot of it, like I said, when you talk remote go lives and the situations we have been through, it'll more easily. So I am very hopeful that from though your question was not really the partners, your question really was how do people buy and consume the software they buy. But if they start working in that fashion, I would see faster adoption, and I would see far lower amounts of shelfware, because unfortunately, a lot of people also tend to buy software, then it doesn't get used because they are not able to fit the way they work to what the software can do for them.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Amrit.
Anshul, you can go ahead.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Hi.
Uh, Hi. My question is in similar lines with what Himanshu asked. That
Hmm.
this new global Bharat would specifically to target like medium sector more, or even it will target the micro or small sector as well, because again that there are many small players providing ERP solutions. So, and other thing, like it is very initial times to ask about the success of the program, but if you can shed some light on that, how this program has been.
So I have no clue. Program, as I said, we announced last Monday. So it's barely taken birth. But I think when I said Global Bharat, only one piece was the software. The others, if you remember, were demand, the Ariba platform. So we already have 40,000 suppliers on the platform. I'd expect to see a massive addition of Indian suppliers who can join up and expose their products to global buyers. Definitely around the Code Unnati 2.0, as it were, I would expect to see a lot of sign-ups. At least couple of thousand mid-sized companies should sign up to have their employees go through that. And on the Bharat ERP program, remember it's designed for, I talked about a starter pack. So it doesn't have the full functionality of the B1 product. Therefore, it's designed only 1 to 5. So if you cross the need for 5 licenses, you will anyway have to upgrade to the B1 itself or any other product. So if you count 1 to 5 licenses, given the way a ERP user model works, at least that company would have, 15, 20 times more employees. So, one license, let's say 10, 15 people, 5 licenses, maybe 50, 60 people. So you can figure that range out.
Thank you, sir.
So
Thanks.
I do have a question for
Yeah,
you.
Weber, please.
Uh, so can you shed some light on the business cloud model in context of intelligent enterprise strategy of SAP, especially in the business landscape after the COVID or in the going on COVID era?
Yeah, great question, Weber. So I just launched this business cloud consortium, so to say. So I'll come to that. See, SAP strategy is called the intelligent enterprise. So SAP believes that by integrating the entire enterprise on a common data model and on integrated applications, you'll be able to, like I said, right? If I figure out your experience is bad because there was a packaging material which didn't work, then the intelligent enterprise should be able to connect those dots and immediately trigger an action to change the packaging supplier or change the design or whatever it is, right? So that's the intelligent enterprise. The business cloud consortium is, so the business cloud is something different. And we've done a lot of research on this. So the definition of the business cloud is business process that works autonomous and automated on cloud native architecture, which basically means it's not just one person providing it. So if you look at your entire tech stack, whether it's infrastructure, data, platform, application, process, user experience, that whole stack has to come to you. So if you take order to cash, the whole stack is with you. SAP may be part of it. There'll be obviously other players as part of it because SAP does not provide to you the entirety of the stack. So the Business Cloud Consortium, which we just launched, is SAP, EY, and Microsoft. And we have done it only for consumer services. So in consumer product companies, you will see such process solutions being brought to the market, running on Azure, driven by SAP's applications and EY's process consulting, so that you get that one gestalt experience of transforming, let's say, an order to cash as a process to an entire integrated, smooth, synchronized process running for your enterprise. So that is also just begun, and the three companies are putting those models together. But we have made that, and we are announcing that and talking about it. So that's the difference. The business cloud is a bigger picture. SAP's intelligent enterprise is an essential component of that.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Uh, do we have any more questions? Yeah, Ashwin, go ahead.
Okay, last
Yeah,
question.
good, yeah,
Sure, sir.
good
This is the last
afternoon,
question.
sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Ashwin.
Yeah. So, SAP has been planning for a long time, like for 3 to 5 years, to have more consultants trained. And along the same lines, you have nicely explained how it is planning to expand business in MSME sectors in India. So what I would like to know is your personal opinion on whether SAP is focusing more on developing countries like India, where they have similar growth in industry sector with cheap labor, like let's say Uganda or Bangladesh, because in developed countries, people are more aware of technology. So do they have similar strategies in other countries, or they have some different approach?
So, Ashwin, I'll answer this a little differently. I think one of SAP's great strength is what to centralize and what to decentralize. I think it manages that balance. Of all organizations I've seen, this is the best I've seen. So to that extent, SAP centrally does control the platform, the technology, a lot of that, but it gives. So if I'm sitting in India and working in India, I have almost complete freedom in what needs to be done to develop this country, this market, with certain guiding principles. So to that extent, what is interesting is the guiding principles remain same, right? Uh, to societally
Right.
create impact, to be able to make the nation stronger, and to be able to make businesses best run and far more effective with their business models. But they will manifest separately in different countries. So when I described the Code
Okay.
Unnati model to you, this problem of enormous poverty and lack of inclusive growth is, to a large extent, uniquely an Indian problem. And this may not be the
Yes.
problem in Australia or Sweden or Germany and such like. And there SAP will manifest its desire to improve society in a different fashion. Hmm. So with certain guiding principles, we will always do what is most impactful and best for that local market.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So, sir, I would
Thanks.
like to conclude this session now. So, as you rightly said, that the way forward is growth. And as Antonio de Saint once said, a goal without a plan is a wish. And we all need, and the need of the hour is also to set an individual goal for ourselves and a resilient one. So this session with you will help us definitely in expecting the unexpected side of the pivoting business landscape that we are going through. And thank you for this insightful and a great session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Weber. I really enjoyed it. All the very best, team. And I wish you the best for your journey. You guys are in the right place, right time, and you are going to have a great ride. Let me assure you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
sir.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
All the
Thank you,
best.
sir.
Sure.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you,
Sure.
sir. Have a good